What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon466cards, and today we're going to talk about the lack of TCG and Pokemon on the show floor of the National this past weekend. I was intrigued as to whether or not Pokemon and TCG would show up on the show floor because of the big boom that Pokemon has had over the last year or two. And even though this is supposed to be the National Sports Collectors Convention, obviously sports cards and TCG cards are closely linked to the fact that they are trading cards, right? And so, according to this map from Ben Burrows a week before the National, there were roughly 50 or so dealers that had non-sports and TCG in their listings profile. And so, did that actually happen? Was it a big presence on the show floor? Well, according to this article from Ben Burrows, it wasn't felt on the show floor in any tangible way, and any fear that the TCG community would take over the National can be put on hold for another year. And I can say, as someone who spent 2 days at the National and walked the entire show floor and looked at every booth, that was the case. Pokemon was there, but you really had to look for it. There was maybe 3 or 5 tables or so that had a lot of Pokemon, but that was about it. No real tables there had a bunch of it. It was just a handful of tables. And I heard a theory from someone. I don't want to take credit for this theory, but they were speaking off the record to their people that they were with. I just happened to overhear it, but it is from someone very prominent in the hobby who explained why there wasn't any TCG at the National. And they said that the people at the National and the people that were added to the National this year, in terms of that second floor, they were people who had been on the National's waiting list for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe even longer, right? Those were the new vendors at the show this year. But the TCG and Pokemon boom only happened in the last year or two. And so they'd be at the very bottom of the waiting list to join the National as a vendor. And so they would not be selected. They're still on the waiting list if they had applied. And that's why there were no new vendors with Pokemon. They are still on the waiting list. They are not at the top of the waiting list because they would have only joined in the last year or two when the boom happened. And that is a theory that makes perfect sense to me, that's why all the existing dealers have continued to sell what they sell, which is sports stuff, and all of the TCG people are still at the bottom of the waiting list. Now, they probably moved their way up a little bit, but that's what happens when you only apply in the last year to 18 months or so. And so that theory makes perfect sense. I don't want to share the person's name as to who said it because it was off the record. And so, but it makes all the sense in the world. So that is why, to me, there was very, very little TCG and Pokemon on the show floor at the National. What do you think about this theory? I think it's a very good one. I think it makes a lot of logical sense. And so I'm inclined to believe it. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.